So can a smell really calm you down when you're feeling anxious? It sounds kind of out there, right? But today, we're going to cut through all the hype and get right to the science behind essential oils. We'll look at what they can do, and maybe just as importantly, what they can't.
Look, we're all just trying to find a little bit of calm in this crazy, stressful world. If you've ever found yourself looking for a more natural way to just take a breath, you are so not alone. A lot of people are getting into aromatherapy for stress and anxiety. But does it actually work? Like, what does the real science say? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dig into.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll cover the basics, anxiety and aromatherapy. Then we'll get into the good stuff, the science of scent. After that, we'll do a quick comparison with something you've probably heard a lot about, CBD. We'll also cover how to use these oils safely, which is super important. We'll touch on the risks, and finally, we'll zoom out to see where all this fits into the bigger picture.
Okay, let's dive into our first section, anxiety and aromatherapy. Before we jump into all the studies and stuff, let's just get our definition straight so we're all on the same page.
Okay, so what are essential oils? Basically, they're super concentrated liquids pulled from plants, flowers, you name it. They're incredibly potent. I mean, think about it. It's like the pure essence of a plant, all its scent and properties squeezed into one tiny little bottle.
Now, this is a huge deal, and you really need to hear this. The FDA does not, I repeat, does not regulate the purity or quality of these oils. So that bottle you're buying, it could be the real deal, or, well, it could be something else entirely. The big takeaway here is you have to do your own research on the brand, and for sure, talk to your doctor before you start using anything new.
All right, Section 2. This is what we've all been waiting for, the science of scent. Let's look at what the research actually says. Is there any real evidence that these things help with anxiety?
And of course, we have to start with the rock star of essential oils, lavender. It's basically the poster child for calm. And yeah, there's a pretty good reason for that.
So here's what's interesting. The research isn't just a blanket, lavender is good for anxiety. It's more specific. A big review in 2017 found that, yeah, lavender aromatherapy can actually help lower anxiety in really stressful situations, like right before you go into surgery. But, and this is a big but, the same researchers were quick to say that the overall evidence still isn't super strong. So promising, but we need more.
Okay, up next we have Bergamot Orange. If you've ever had a cup of Earl Grey tea, you already know this scent. It's another really popular one for helping people feel less anxious.
And look at this, we're seeing a pattern here. Just like lavender, a study in 2020 found it helped people who were nervous before surgery. But I want you to pay close attention to that phrase, complementary treatment. That's the key. We're not talking about replacing your doctor's advice. We're talking about maybe adding another little tool to your toolbox. All right, let's talk about lemon, that bright, fresh scent. And, you guessed it, the research again points to it being helpful in a very specific context. And when I say specific, I mean really specific. A 2022 study focused on nursing students right before a big test. You know that classic test anxiety feeling? Well, the ones who sniffed some lemon oil beforehand actually felt less anxious. It just goes to show it might be a simple, cheap little trick for those super stressful moments.
Okay, Section 3. Let's switch gears a little and tackle a big question that's floating around out there, essential oils versus CBD oil. You hear about both for anxiety, but how do they actually compare?
So let's break this down. On one side, you have essential oils. They come from all sorts of different plants, and we mostly use them for aromatherapy, smelling them. The research on them is kind of all over the place. On the other side, you have CBD oil. That comes from one specific plant, cannabis or hemp, and you usually take it by mouth. The research there is showing some early promise for things like social anxiety, but just like with essential oils, the big headline is, we need more research.
Okay, so we've talked about what these oils are and some of the science. Now for the really important part. How do you actually use them safely? Let's get practical.
Okay, first things first, and this is non-negotiable. You need to know what a carrier oil is. Remember how we said essential oils are super concentrated? Well, you can't just slather them on your skin. That's a recipe for a bad reaction. You have to dilute them with a neutral oil. Think sweet almond oil or even olive oil from your kitchen to make them safe to put on your body.
So here's your safety checklist. Step 1, dilute it every single time. Step 2, do a little patch test. Put a tiny bit on your arm and wait to see if your skin is cool with it. Step 3, pick your method. Are you going to put it in a diffuser, mix it into a massage oil? What's the plan? And step 4, and I can't say this enough, never, ever swallow these oils. Seriously, many of them are straight up toxic if you ingest them.
All right, let's keep talking about safety. Section 5 is all about the risks and other things you need to think about. It's super important to know what to keep an eye out for.
So when you do that patch test, what are you looking for? Anything like blotchy skin, itching, pain, redness. Basically, if your skin is not happy, that's a clear signal to stop. Wash it off right away with soap and water, and just don't use that oil on your skin again.
And here's another pro tip. Especially for the citrus oils like lemon, they can make your skin way more sensitive to the sun. It's called photosensitivity. So if you put lemon oil on your skin, you've got to be extra careful about sun exposure. Otherwise, you could get a really nasty sunburn. Okay, last section. Let's zoom out and look beyond the bottle. Because while a nice scent can be a helpful tool, it is absolutely not a replacement for professional help when you really need it.
So, when is it time to talk to someone? If your anxiety is messing with your life in a major way, if you can't sleep, if you're irritable all the time, if you find yourself just wanting to stay home and avoid everything, those are all signs. That's your cue to reach out to a doctor or a therapist. That's when you need more support than an oil can provide. And please remember, there are real, proven treatments out there that work. We're talking about things like therapy, especially cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT, medication, and other lifestyle changes. These are the heavy hitters for managing anxiety. Essential oils are a nice add-on, but they are never, ever a substitute for professional medical care.
And that really brings us to the big takeaway here. Look, aromatherapy isn't going to cure anxiety, but creating a small, mindful ritual for yourself, that can be incredibly powerful. So the question I want to leave you with is this. What role could a simple, pleasant ritual like this play in your overall plan for taking care of yourself? Because at the end of the day, it's all about building your own personal toolkit for finding a little bit of calm.